Another option that governments and societies could use to try to improve the birth rate is propaganda. Propaganda is when you try to use informational messages to change people's behavior or attitudes. And propaganda can take many forms, but the basic idea is you're trying to convince people that it's good to have babies, that babies are the patriotic thing to do, and that everyone should do it. Now, the traditional propaganda is a government that controls the news media, and they pummel the people with messages that try to push them in a certain direction, try to get them to support the war effort or do whatever is in the government's interest. In the democratic countries, like the United States and Europe, propaganda goes by the name of advertising, which is paid propaganda. So in these countries, what we could do is we could hire all the best advertising agencies, and they could come together and try to craft a message that says, have more babies. Babies are the thing to do. Maybe you could come up with a little jingle for it, a little song and dance about how we should have babies. And you can use religion to try to convey this message as well. Religions could try to, from the pulpit, they could say that it is God's intention that you go forth and multiply. So we could use religion to try to convey this message as well. The trouble with all these forms of propaganda is it's questionable whether it really works and whether it can really change people's fundamental attitudes and behavior. What you're fighting against is the fact that having children is not in your personal best interest. It's extremely costly, it's extremely risky, and if people have the choice, naturally people are going to choose to limit their risk and limit their costs. So it's not in your best interest to have babies. So if flying in the face of this, you could fill the air with propaganda messages, and it's not really clear that they would be taken seriously. They might even be counterproductive. If the US government started a campaign to have more babies, that could almost start a backlash and encourage people to have fewer babies because they see the government trying to manipulate them. In addition, there's no real crisis. There's no apparent crisis. The crisis isn't visible. This baby-making crisis is something that is long-term, is going on over 50 years, and people don't see it in the street. You don't see the lack of babies in the street or any crisis for society. So sending out these messages, I just don't think it's going to work. Now, desperate governments are certainly going to try it. I'm sure Russia is trying it right now, trying to send out messages to get people to have babies. But I don't think it's going to change anything. I don't think, in the absence of any real changes in the services provided to parents, I don't think just changing a message is going to change the fertility rate. If you did have changes in your services and the government started offering free child care and other kinds of support services, you could advertise those services and try to get people to recognize that those services exist. But I don't think just based on information alone you can change the fertility rate.